Welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti. My guest this evening is Dr. Glenn Lungarini, who's the Executive Director of the CAS CIAC.
Pete, great to see you
Glenn,
again.
how are you, bud?
Things
Welcome.
are going very well. It's great to be back on the show with you again.
Great to see you. It's been a while. What's new?
You know, we're having a great year at CIAC. Started off with a terrific fall season and very successful. Now we've moved our way into the winter. We're about midway through the winter sports season right now, and really excited about some of the things happening at CIAC.
Now, the winter season is about halfway through, and then after that, we hit championships.
You know, up and coming, we'll start actually in February, so we'll see some of those indoor track class meets and the state open happening in February there, and then our wrestling tournament as well towards the end of February. Then as we get into March, we're going to see our basketball tournaments, our hockey tournament, and our cheerleading and dance championships as well. So always an exciting time, and this is a time when we're really preparing for that, Pete. We're meeting with the venues that are going to be hosting our events and starting to really make sure all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and we're ready for those great events for our kids.
I'm going to say we'll talk about venues here in a little while, but what I want to talk about first thing is the new shot clock rule that we're going to roll out, I believe next year, you said?
The basketball shot clock will be ready for next year, and that was approved last year. And part of that approval, really, what we were waiting for is there were a lot of discussions at the National Federation of High School level in terms of whether that would become a playing rule. So prior to this season, that was not an NFHS playing rule. And as a 100% NFHS state, we didn't want to implement the shot clock until that process went through. So they did approve that. And I think one of the big misconceptions that was out there previously is that, Connecticut was late to the game, that everybody else in the country was using the shot clock. In fact, before the NFHS changed its rule, there were only 8 states in the country that were using a shot clock. We just happened to be surrounded by 3 of them. So I think the perception, looking at New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, that we're using the shot clock was that, Connecticut was late to the game in this. But when we approved it, there were 11 states that had approved it when we approved it. Since that time, there's another 11 that have approved it. So we see as of next year, there'll be 22 states right now in the country that are using the shot clock. And we think that'll grow. Again, most of us were waiting to see, was the NFHS going to accept it as a playing rule? They did that, and we approved it.
Now, for everybody who's just joining us, what is the NFHS? Obviously, you know and I know. But.
Yeah, the NFHS, the National Federation of High Schools. So they work, and they are the national group that all of our state associations belong to, not only on the athletic side, but also academically. So for any clubs and activities, things like marching band, choir, these are all activities that they guide and give guidance through. On the sports side, this is the national governing body that sets the rules by which we play high school sports. So it's based out of Indianapolis. Their building actually connects with the NCAA building. The executive director is my predecessor from Connecticut, Dr. Carissa Niehoff.
That's right.
And she's doing an amazing job down there, but that is the NFHS.
That's right. And they do a pretty good job throughout the school year and to keep everything up and running.
Yeah, it certainly is a very busy job. You're thinking about the all 50 states that they're working with as well. So there's a lot of diversity, a lot of disparity in how some states work and run. So they try to keep that global view, do what's best in kids for kids. They do a lot of great work as well on sportsmanship conferences, student leadership conferences. So there's a lot of opportunity through them to develop leadership skills for our kids. As I said, both through sport and through other clubs. It really is a tremendous organization, both in support for us and the experiences and leadership that they provide to students.
Let's recap the fall sports season. How'd we do?
Yeah, we had a great fall sports season, and I'd say it was nice. We were thinking back, a year ago, and we were starting fall sports, and we still had a pretty extensive COVID document at that time. And we didn't even have to put one out this year, Pete. So that was exciting to be able to just come back and really have that sense of normalcy for kids. And we had a great fall season, terrific championships throughout. We had some really good matchups and exciting playoffs for the kids as well. So it was great to have those full seasons, see that excitement working into the playoff scenario, and just some awesome championship events.
And as far as championship events go, let's talk about the championship venues.
Yeah, we had a couple new ones in the fall, and some that we're revisiting here in the winter that I think are very exciting, and some new ones coming up in the spring. So, this past fall, we traditionally now it was our second year playing at Hartford Athletic, and the stadium there for soccer, and getting the kids to a professional soccer stadium is just awesome for that sport. To see where some of their role models and play, and see where professional soccer plays, and then to be able to get on the field and in the locker rooms, it's such a great experience for those kids. So we're very grateful for our partnership with the fine folks at Hartford Athletic, and their willingness to host those championships. We're going to be doing that for years to come. So we signed a 3-year deal with them this year. So this was the first of 3 years. So we're excited to be able to continue there for the next 2, and then we'll revisit it again after that. In the sport of football, we played some new championships there too, and that was a little unique too, because this was the first year we had 6 divisions in football.
Right.
And so we played 3 games at Rentschler Field. The folks from UConn at Pratt & Whitney Stadium, and the folks from Rentschler, we worked with Derek Miles over there, just a tremendous guy, and really did a great job of welcoming us and making sure that event went flawless. I don't think anybody who came to that event left disappointed. It really was outstanding. And then while that was going on over at Central Connecticut State University, we worked with Tom Pinsence, the athletic director at Central. And same thing, I'd say just a great venue. Seats about 5,000 people. And what an awesome atmosphere and venue over there as well. So really have to thank Central and the folks over at Pratt & Whitney Stadium and Rentschler Field for their kindness and their work to allow us to come there and play games. It was a huge success. The week after it was done, we had conversations with both saying, give us your dates for next year. We want you back. And so we're excited that we're gonna be there for the foreseeable future there.
Oh, nice.
Also with those venues, I also want to give some credit to. We did have some very brief conversations with Coach Mora up at UConn about using Rentschler Field and some of the venues there. Their assistant coaches were a great help to us as well. And then the former Chief of Staff, Paul Mounds, with the Governor's office, and Governor Lamont, helping us with those initial conversations to make connection was wonderful. So we appreciate all the work that went into bringing those very successful events there.
I was going to say, playing at Rentschler Field, the kids must have loved that.
Yeah, it's at both venues, and I think it's the same kind of reaction that we get at Mohegan, and really at Hartford Athletic this year as well. When you walk into that venue, but particularly just at Rentschler, when you come down the ramp, and you first walk into the stadium, and then you're facing the big screen, and to have the logos and the up there and the CIAC championship, it just gives it a special feel.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's something that we take a lot of pride in with our office, is when we select venues. We're trying to select venues too where we can really make it a destination for the kids, that when they show up there, it looks very much like a CIAC championship event. So there's CIAC branding. We want them to see that it is a high school event, but at the same time, whenever we can showcase our colleges and universities and the other professional fields and stadiums that we have, we think it's important to do that.
Absolutely.
In Connecticut. Anytime we can get kids on a college campus, it helps encourage that college and career connection that we really talk about in our schools. and the academic setting. So it's important to get there. And we're really excited coming up in this winter.
Yeah.
We're going to be back at Quinnipiac University for hockey.
Oh, excellent.
Not only for finals, but we signed on for all of our semifinal games to be at Quinnipiac as well. So it's going to be a great experience for those kids right up on the hill. Semifinals and finals at Quinnipiac. Just, again, an awesome atmosphere and experience. And then come springtime, we're very excited that we did sign an agreement to bring all 4 of our softball championships to UConn. And it is just a state-of-the-art softball facility.
Is it?
And it's going to be an outstanding experience for our girls.
Really? Now, let's talk, before we switch off to the next topic, let's finish talking about venues, and let's talk about Mohegan Sun and, I believe, the basketball.
Yeah, Mohegan Sun. We're back at Mohegan Sun for basketball. That weekend, we do our dedication ceremony for that tournament on Friday night, March 17th. On Saturday, March 18th and 19th, we're going to have 5 championship games each day, so a total of 10 games over the weekend.
Oh, nice.
Up at Mohegan Sun. Again, the folks at Mohegan, Tom Cantone up there is just incredible. Mike Libera, who we work with very closely. The team up there just does an outstanding job for us. Again, when those kids arrive, and their buses come in underneath the arena, they're greeted when they come off, and just to think of the history of that and playing where UConn plays and play, so we're, again, some of their heroes play, thinking about the story tradition of UConn basketball, boys and girls. I think Michael Jordan has played on that floor. The Hall of Fame game is played at Mohegan Sun. So just great environment and history for those kids to be part of at Mohegan.
Glenn, would you mind sticking around for another segment?
Happy to.
We'll be right back.
You matter.
You matter.
And your words matter too.
Your words matter.
What you say in the hallways at school or in the student section at a game matters.
Words can be hurtful.
Words can be offensive.
Words can leave scars.
Words can also inspire.
Support and uplift.
You and your words.
Are they both important?
As a matter of fact, yes.
Community TV, your neighborhood TV.
Publicly funded and a reliable partner for cable companies nationwide. It provides transparent coverage of local and state government, education, and public programming.
A digital town green that can be watched anywhere, anytime, and on any device.
Watch us on today's high-tech distribution methods.
Community TV in Connecticut.
Local,
unfiltered,
reliable, and yours.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti, sitting here with Glenn Lungarini, who's the Executive Director of the CAS CIAC. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, bud. All right, let's see. So we talked about championships. We talked about fall season. We talked about the shot clock. Let's talk about student athletic behavior. Because obviously something has happened recently, and
yeah, Pete, hot topic right now, not only in Connecticut, but across the country. Earlier, we mentioned the National Federation of High Schools, the NFHS, and they've had a campaign that started early this year in September and is continuing through the season called Bench Bad Behavior. Okay. So, this is something that, again, it's not necessarily new, but we've seen the types of behaviors continue to be ramped up. We talked about this previously on your show, Pete, when we were covering shortages of officials.
Yes.
And how fans interact with officials, and that being a primary reason that many officials are walking away from the game. Right. Recently here in Connecticut, we had 3 incidents where there were altercations that happened at a basketball event. 2 of those happened after the game, at the end of the handshake lines, and 1 of those happened most recently during the game. And, a couple important points to this. One, I don't think what we're seeing is unique, and I don't think it's game specific. Right. In some of those cases, the altercation that occurred after the game had nothing to do with the game.
No.
It was more about what was happening in communities and groups coming together.
Right.
And I think sport is a place where we see a lot of that happen, where the emotion of sport and a time where you're bringing people from multiple communities together, it just at times presents an environment where, if something escalates, and it's easy for it to get to the point that we saw it get to.
Mm-hmm.
We try to do the best we can working with our schools to put practices in place to prevent those things from happening. We'll continue to work with them. Right. I want to commend the athletic administration at New Haven and in Middletown, where those two incidents happened. Security and police were right there.
Right.
And they reacted as quickly as they can. In all of these situations, the way the schools interact with each other is just important.
Right.
It's unfortunate that the incident happened, but how we address it and how we respond to it is an important factor in this. So coming up, actually, the end of this week, and Friday, I'm going to be in New Haven, where the New Haven administration from Wilbur Cross and the administration from Bassick has worked to bring the two teams together for a session in New Haven, working on restoring that relationship both on the court and in the community. I think it's outstanding. And at the CIAC offices on Friday, we're going to have some folks from Bloomfield High School and from New Britain High School, where we just had an incident, doing the same type of activity at the offices. So, I think it's important for people to understand, when these events happen, and again, it's not just about punishment. There's enough research out there that says, simply, punishing somebody doesn't change behavior.
No.
So, we're invested in changing behavior, preventing incidents like this from happening in the future, and working on, trying to build relationships within communities and then among communities. So hopefully at the end of this week, Pete, we see some real positive actions come out of what was a negative moment.
Absolutely. And I think I saw something about that on the news.
Yeah, I think Eric Dobratz was covering that, I believe.
So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so more to come there, Pete.
Absolutely. And obviously, if something happens like that, it's up to the administration as far as degree of penalty, degree of what happens.
Yeah, and in all of those cases, in our conversations, we do know that the schools did take action against the kids. Those that were directly involved, they did issue discipline in those cases. And Pete, it's not just on the courts. And those games are a place that we see that. And sports, again, is a place where there's media coverage. There's media at every game, so there's opportunities to capture film and see that. But we really have seen an uptick of negative behavioral incidents K-12 in our schools. We've seen more incidents within the classrooms that we're trying to address. Not too far ago here in Connecticut, we were talking about a Board of Ed meeting where there were, punches thrown at a Board of Ed meeting. So the way that we as a society are regulating, handling our emotions, and dealing to adversity is something that we just need to be aware of and we need to practice better skills than what we're doing right now.
Absolutely. And we talked about it in the first segment and briefly, but let's talk about the NFHS and how you, with the CAS CIAC, work together with the NFHS to get stuff done throughout the school year.
Yeah, so the National Federation of High Schools, the NFHS, work very collaboratively with us and all the state associations. As we go through the school year, there's opportunities for us to write into the NFHS on any sport with rules, suggestions, or changes. They have national committees for every sport, so those groups will get together, consider any of the proposals that come in from states and whether or not those changes will be approved. Another big piece where they're extremely valuable is their Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. So, as we were going through COVID, again, they were a huge help to us in getting that national input and expertise as well as what we had here in Connecticut. But now beyond that, just thinking of ways that we could address and respond to athletic injury, whether it be concussion, it be, ACL strains, tears, things that the way that we respond and make sure that we are conducting our practices and what is the best practice out there across the country. The National Federation does an outstanding job of keeping us up to date on that.
Absolutely. And obviously, COVID has gone out of the high school and pretty much somewhat gone out of everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. We'd like to think.
We'd like to think. I mean, it's still here,
Yeah.
Pete, but I think we've learned how to live with it.
Absolutely.
And, we've learned a lot since it first struck us in 2020.
Right.
And, I think we've certainly through that time have proven that we can play sports and we can play sports safely, even in the presence of COVID and other respiratory diseases.
I was going to say, I think during COVID, during the first wave of COVID, I think the first time you and I did our interview together, I was here. You were through a screen, but you were up in Cheshire at the CIAC headquarters.
Yeah.
You were up at the office.
There were a lot of those tile meetings at that time.
Oh, my God.
A lot of those Zoom meetings.
It's like, people were like, you ever want to get on a Zoom meeting again? I'm like, no, preferably not, but that's okay. All right, the other thing we have to talk about is the partnership that you guys have with the Special Olympics.
Pete, what a true honor and pleasure it is to work with Special Olympics Connecticut. Just recently, their executive director, Mike Mason, and I got together for another contract signing, extending the partnership that we've enjoyed for many years at CIAC. Through that time in our partnership with Special Olympics, we have created the most decorated unified program in the country. And honestly, Pete, it's not even close. The awards that our unified program has won and the accolades that our schools have won far exceed what any other state has done. And the experiences that we give kids through that program, the peer athletes and the athletes themselves, you talk to any of those athletes and they'll tell you that those are some of their best and most treasured experiences in sport. And if you make your way up to Mohegan Sun for the basketball championships, the halftime of every one of those games has two unified teams that come out and play. And it really is some of the highlights of the whole weekend is watching those kids come out and play. It's a special moment.
And I'm sure with the unified, you and I actually also have another colleague together, and that's Bob Hale.
Yeah, Bob Hale is our director of Unified Sports. He worked as an assistant director for several years, and he took over for us when George Sinnott left that position. And George was one of the people that really brought Unified to where it was and set a high standard. And there really wasn't anybody better than Bob to step in and carry that torch forward and continue to keep Unified at the high level it is. And Bob has continued to expand that, bringing on additional sports, bringing on additional schools. So he's done an amazing job, and we expect nothing else. As you said, he's from the local area.
Absolutely.
I think his last tenure was as principal at Westbrook High School.
It was.
And, he's just a tremendous man and administrator.
Oh, he's a great guy, too. Every once in a while, I'll see him around town, and hey, how's it going? Good. How are you?
Great guy, and a heck of a magician too.
Oh, absolutely.
So
have you ever seen him perform?
We've had the pleasure of seeing Bob perform.
I was going to say
he's just a man of many talents.
I was going to say if you haven't, you might want to. Also, let's talk about and I know I'm going to goof this up, the NIL.
NIL. So NIL stands for Name, Image, and Likeness. This is something that really took the college world by storm and the NCAA, fairly recently, and we've seen it trickle down to the high school levels as well. So within Connecticut, we do have some of our state laws that do permit this. We did work with our legal counsel and member schools to draft a policy.
Right.
And we're working with kids on it. What's important is we want to give kids opportunities to benefit from their name, image, and likeness. At the same time, we want to protect the name, image, and likeness of our schools, of our leagues, and of our associations. So we're working very closely with our schools right now on any interest that comes up from student athletes to make sure they don't jeopardize their amateur status with us or the NCAA.
And with the NIL, I believe some students can actually get endorsements.
You can get endorsements. You can benefit from either having equipment, or you can benefit monetarily from that. The key pieces of that, though, is you cannot use your school's name, image, likeness, insignia, motto. You can't use your leagues or the CIACs. So it has to be done outside of your school sports.
Gotcha.
You know, and that's a difference that, you know, really had existed, you know, previously in some places as well. So, you know, seeing that now that it's a little bit more widely available, again, this is something that, hey, if we have that urban kid who, you know, Nike is interested in talking to, and, you know, they're going to do something on their Instagram page that has nothing to do with their school team, you know, that is okay to do. And, you know, like I said, we've seen that in other places where we had some multi-talented kids where, you know, a kid who was a good musician might have already been benefiting because they had 100,000 followers on Instagram.
Right.
That had nothing to do with sport.
No, absolutely not. And before we wrap up, if you want more information on the CIAC, where are they going?
Yeah, www.ciacsports.org. You can find all that information on our website.
Dr. Glenn Lungarini from the CIAC, thanks for some time, and we'll see you again soon.
Pleasure, Pete. Thank you.
Pleasure, Glenn. On behalf of Dr. Glenn Longarini, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next time.